This is a screencast for week 4. Today I'm going to be talking about George Gordon, who was Lord Byron. This week of readings, these authors this week are all really unique, and I didn't even really realize that I'd paired them all together, but they all died relatively young. Keats died at 25. George Gordon died at 36, and then Percy Bysshe Shelley died at 30. So we've got the kind of the Dead Poets Society here going on, and I unintentionally stuck them all together. George Gordon, Lord Byron, is kind of like the bad boy of the Romantic literary movement, if that's like a really big thing. He was famously described as being mad, bad, and dangerous to know. So he lived quite an adventurous life, and a very scandalous one, as well. He was born in 1788, the 22nd of January in Dover. But that's kind of like up for debate. Some people also say that he was born in London. I don't really know there. But he was the son of Captain John Mad Jack Byron. So Daddy was a bad boy too, I think. And his second wife of Mad Jack who was an heiress of an estate in Aberdeenshire. His first wife was the Marchioness of Carmarthen, and she had a daughter, and her name was Augusta Lee. And so actually Byron fell in love with Augusta Lee, who was his half sister, and apparently they fathered a love child there. So very much like soap opera here that we've got going on. So he was actually exiled from England mainly due to the rumors of this escapade, this affair that he had with his half sister. But he traveled extensively. He left England, traveled to Italy, went to the Far East. He was very adventurous in his life. And I guess that's where a lot of that bad boy rumor, that bad boy mentality comes from. He's best known for two long narrative poems, Childe Harold's Pilgrimage and Don Juan, which scholars believe was partly based on his life. No, it's not Don Juan like Don Juan DeMarco, but it's Don Juan is how it's pronounced in Byron's world. Leading figure of the Romantic movement, however, we've talked very significantly about the Romantic movement being a way to kind of dispel all of the rational, scientific movements that were happening before in the neoclassical period that we talked about at the end of EH 203. He's widely regarded as one of the greatest British poets and one of the most influential. And then most of his works are inspired by his travels. He fought in the Greek War of Independence, oddly enough, where the Greeks considered him to be a national hero, and he died at 36 after contracting a fever that turned into sepsis. So today I'm going to be talking about She Walks in Beauty, one of his shorter works and one of my favorites from him. I've always liked Don Juan, but it's a little long to tackle, so I chose this one because I really like this poem, and I hope you will too. So she walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to the tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face. Where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place, and on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. So we've got 3 stanzas. Each stanza is 6 lines. This form was mainly used for hymns, and so it's very simple in form. The poem itself is is a love poem of sorts, but it doesn't really refer to like a passionate love or a sexual love. The poem is following a rhyme scheme of A, B all the way through. Written in iambic tetrameter, which means that the lines contain 4 sets of 2 beats, unstressed, stressed syllable throughout, and those make iambs. We talked about iambic pentameter when we looked at Shakespeare in 203. So the speaker is really in awe of this woman's beauty, and it comes across as just that. It's like the awe that one would feel for a lovely painting or a scene in nature. And it's also a very unusual choice coming from Byron, given the fact that he was mainly known for all of his affairs and his scandal. So he spends these lines celebrating the beauty of one woman, comparing her beauty to the night rather than the day. So let's take a look. We'll break it down starting in stanza 1. The speaker opens the poem with perhaps the most famous lines that Byron ever wrote. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Right from the start, Byron's setting the tone with a comparison that seems almost divine. So she's beautiful like the vast starry night. And here it's almost like it's not just a physical beauty, it's like a shield of beauty, because she's very innocent and unaware that she is beautiful. And it's also interesting that he compares her beauty to night rather than day. We consider day, in the light, beauty in the light, but in the day is considered gaudy, like too bright, too much light here. So we have, a beauty that is so she's so beautiful that it almost gives us a kind of a reference to it can be dangerous, because the night can be dangerous, catastrophic. We think about Helen of Troy, right, who was considered to be so beautiful that she started a war. Okay, and stanza 2, the poet goes on to compare and contrast the different aspects of her beauty. Her dark hair, her white face, which the light hits and kind of gives her like an aura, like a halo, maybe a reference here to the Virgin Mary that we see in pictures and art. And so it's easier for us to make kind of religious associations or divine associations, religion, because this poem is structured like a hymn. There's also an emphasis on her innocence here, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. She is largely innocent, almost virginal, if you will. And the poet cannot land on a word that kind of fully encompasses exactly how beautiful she is. She reconciles darkness and lightness together, because she appears both glowing and also shrouded in darkness. Okay. There's a little side story here that Byron met this woman at a funeral. And this poem may have been about her here. So like seeing his cousin, this is his cousin, because he can't stay away from the family members apparently. Her name was Anne Wilmot. And scholars believe that it was written about her when he witnessed her at a funeral. So she would have been shrouded in the mourning color of black, but that her beauty kind of shined through that. So there we have that kind of connection. In stanza 3, we see that the night is devoid of people, devoid of clouds. It's quiet. It's when things rest. Right? So she exists in a world that is very peaceful. She exists in a world that is very quiet. Her heart is innocent, her mind is clear, and, you know, kind of given his history for all of his troubled life and troubled thoughts and all the scandal that kind of followed him around. It's interesting here that he's emphasizing this quiet and this darkness and this calmness as a beautiful thing. Not really much happening other than that in the poem. Quiet moments of peace, quiet and wonder while he's staring at this woman and her beauty and relating her beauty to this scene this night. And she's really kind of largely unaware that she's made an impression on him and kind of become a symbol of beauty because that was not her intent. It's just like kind of a snapshot of this scene that he is writing about. Very interesting combo here from Lord Byron.